what are the searches that the defendant was searching in her web browser?
It's titled the Sheriff's Office County Jail in Hall County, so I believe in layman's terms she's searching Hall County Jail.
She's searching the Hall County Jail 4 times. Are any of these searches deleted?
The one on Safari.
And this is March 7th at 10 p.m. What's your understanding of when 911 was called?
March 8th at approximately started around 1:11, I believe.
So about 3 hours prior to the 911 call, these 4 searches were done in the defendant's phone?
Yes.
That was the lead investigator who continued his testimony on day 4 in the Killer Gendis murder trial. If you have not been following this case, I'll give you a recap, please. Major trigger warning. This is Dr. Suzanne Miracle, and according to reports, she was a prominent dentist, had a very successful practice in St. Simon's Island before being arrested. She is currently being charged with taking the life of her boyfriend, David Barron, back in March of 2025. What do we know so far according to opening statements, as well as the evidence that has been shown? First and foremost, like the state said, they had a very toxic relationship. In fact, in the previous video, you can hear the text messages. They are constantly going back and forth, going back and forth. Why? Because in December of 2024, she finds out that her boyfriend was actually messaging a woman in Moldova and sending her money. In fact, between $6,000 to $7,000 a month, allegedly, is how much he was sending her because he was paying for her daughter's apartment in New Jersey. She begged him to stop. In fact, texted his son to tell him, look, I think he's being scammed. Please talk to him. And then, of course, texting him, telling him, I thought you loved me. You were going to marry me, but you're texting this woman. I'm not woman enough for you. But then they're happy again, yada, yada. Until in March, where they apparently have a horrible argument. She said that no, that when he slammed the door, she thought that he had fired something. He had her cell phone. He had the journal that belonged to her, and she needed those items so that she could leave the home. She shot at the doorknob, but instead hit him. The defense states that this all happened because she was a domestic violence victim. He was constantly hitting her, abusing her, but she couldn't say anything. And that day she took his life just to defend his or herself, also because her main purpose was to at least get her cell phone and journals so that she could leave the home. So let's continue into a testimony. A couple of things that they've shared. Yesterday, she interviewed with the lead detective and was sharing their relationship, the fact that they had bought a home in Lake Lanier, the fact that they had a lot of arguments about money. Why? Because according to her, he wanted to control her funds. In fact, when they purchased the home in Lake Lanier, she's still working in St. Simon's Island, which was 6 hours away, while he lived there full time. She says that she gave as a down payment $200,000, and that he wanted her to give more than that. Initially, she backed out and said, I'm not giving you a dime more. And finally, she purchased the home with him, and he only gave $100,000. She then shares in the interview with the detective, he also wanted to control what she did with her money by selling her practice. She was retiring and she was going to put that money in funds so that she could take care of herself. And then he was like, no, that money needs to go in the house to lower our mortgage payments. So they had a lot of discussions about that, in addition to the fact that she was livid that he was asking her for all this, but he was sending this woman in Moldova $6,000 to $7,000 a month. Now, one of the things that a detective talks about is the fact that she had no tears the entire time, at all. The entire time that she was having a breakdown, she had no tears. I want to say this. I can't say that she was not emotional because she didn't have any tears, because she was on multiple medications, including Lexapro. And I take Celexa, and I remember my son had an emergency at the hospital. Not one tear came out. Not one. It was like, it did not matter what was happening. I was frozen. I could not shed a tear. I could not cry until a couple of days later, where at this point the pill had worn off. Well, I didn't have it close to me because I was in the hospital. And that's when I was able to really cry and get out all of my emotions. So I don't want to use that against her because she does take multiple medications, rightfully so. Yeah. The next thing that they talk about, they continue with the text messages. In fact, they show Facebook messages where she had messaged the woman in Moldova's daughter, saying that, you know, this is done. He's not sending you guys any more money. You guys are done. He and I are going to get married. And then she tells him that she spoke to the lady in Moldova, and that the lady in Moldova told her that they were married. Keep in mind that according to the documents that the uncle had, paperwork that the uncle saw, so David's brother saw on his desk, he was bringing this woman over to get her green card. Were they married? I don't know. All I know is that in the text messages, every time she asked about them getting married, apparently prior to finding out that he possibly was married, he would say, in due time, honey, in due time. They then continue with the text messages, of course, that she is sending the son, and the fact that she would take notes in her cell phone as if it was a personal journal, where she would kind of write stuff down like, you don't love me. If you love me, you wouldn't have to do this. You wouldn't be with another woman. I can't believe I trusted you. Just a lot of notes, even things that seemed like they were going to be text messages that she was going to copy and paste later on. Then when the defense team comes in, the defense team talks about the fact that the lead investigator, this was the first time he was a lead investigator in this type of case. And the majority of his training has everything to do with guns, barely anything to do with domestic violence. In fact, he listed all of the trainings that he's had over the last few years and tons of hours just on guns and utilizing them, all of these extra things, but maybe 1 hour of domestic violence. So the defense was like, she told you multiple times, I was scared for my life. I thought he was going to kill me. I thought he was going to hurt me. She even told him about a different incident where, that same night he put the gun on her lip, that she was scared, that she wanted to leave, but she couldn't leave because she needed the cell phone and the journal. The guy was very nonchalant. The police officer was very nonchalant. He was, well, that was kind of her theatrics. Didn't seem like he believed her. Also, he goes on to talk about the fact that why not let her have an attorney? If he gave her and read her the Miranda rights, everybody's supposed to initial because he's supposed to go over every single point. He didn't do that. He just told her sign at the bottom. When she said, should I get an attorney? He was like, no. I mean, you don't need one right now. He kept lying to her and telling her that he was alive, that he had not died, and he had no idea, knowing the entire time that he was in fact dead. So they asked him why he did that. He said because he knew that if in that moment he told her that he was dead, that the theatrics would begin and that unfortunately there would be no interview. So he said, so you took advantage of the fact that what her emotional state was like. You knew that if an attorney came and sat down with her, he would say, I need to wait until my client is in a calm state. The attorney would also make it clear that the person had already died, that David was already dead. He would tell her all of the facts so that she could have all of the information necessary to make any decisions. And he said, I just knew that the theatrics were going to start again. They also talk about the fact that there were pictures where it showed that she had bruises. Originally, the police officer had said in prior hearings that yes, those bruises were in fact there, but later on he was like, that's not the right picture. I don't believe I saw any bruises. So the defense attorney started questioning him and trying to impeach him, saying, you said this and now you're saying that. And he said, look, you gave me less pictures than the other one. I was unable to look and confirm that the arms look the same. They don't look the same as when I took the pictures. Maybe they aged. It was a few days later, somebody else took pictures, but those don't look like pictures that I had because I don't remember her having any bruises. Then that's when the prosecutor stands up and starts asking him, did you see her kind of grab her arms? Keep in mind that also when she shot at the doorknob, she then gets a hammer, starts making holes so that she could put her arm in and unlock the door. She could have had the bruising from that. Also, the fact that she had a knot in her head from about a month before, she had told police, no, he didn't do anything. But the fact of the matter is that he shoved the door open, causing her to fall back, slip, and get hurt. And she insinuated that she had been hurt before, that he had somewhat scared her previously, didn't really want to go into details. And the defense is saying, well, she didn't want to go into details because he kept acting like he was alive. Just maybe if you would have told her that he died, maybe she would have felt comfortable enough to tell you everything instead of hiding from you because she was too scared. And he said, I don't think she was scared at all. There's children that when they're victims, they tell us everything. And he said, that's not true. They tell you little things here and there, but you actually have to get a victim's advocate, someone special to come in and speak to them. That was the entirety of day 4. In the next video, I will get into day 5 and day 6.